Well, one of the things that I asked him about, and not specific to Bo Bichette because he hadn't seen his medicals, but hey, how might, if you're coming back from a knee injury and you're overcompensating, how might that lead to a quad injury? Arden, I know you caught up with Bo Bichette a little bit when the Jays were on the road recently. Last we heard was, hey, probably this weekend, but we don't know specifically. How was Bo feeling when you caught up with him last? And did you get into it all, the relationship between that patellar injury and then the quad tightness he was dealing with?
Didn't get into it on the latter, and I don't know that there really would be any way to definitively prove that or empirically demonstrate it. So, I just think the focus right now for Bo is getting back on the field as soon as possible. He's trying to push that process and drive that process really aggressively, and I think that the Blue Jays is always with a competitor like Bo are having to say, okay, let's just take it easy, let's have a rest day today. Okay, let's just make sure everything is good to go before we get you back out there. But also you have the additional pressure of the standings being what they are and the remaining schedule being what it is, and a 85 to 90% Bo Bichette being a really impactful player, even if he isn't 100%. So I think that the most likely scenario is that Bo gets one more day here today and then gets activated either on Saturday or Sunday. It's kind of described as an aggressive return if he came back on Friday. But if there ever was a time to be aggressive, this might just be it. So Bo was in working out at Rogers Center on Thursday. We're going to find out soon how that went and when the Blue Jays are going to try to get him back into the lineup. But I am expecting it to be this weekend. So that is welcome news for John Schneider.
Yeah, that's welcome news for John Schneider and pretty much everyone else, because there's I guess for everyone except maybe Mason McCoy, because there's obviously a cascading effect to the way he helps the entire lineup flow and having good at bats at the top of that lineup. The other injured player who you caught up with a little bit is Matt Chapman. Now, Matt Chapman had, to circle back to the jokes with Mitchell Hooper. We've all jammed our finger in a dumbbell rack at one point or another. Chapman's was bad enough that he missed a couple days, tried to play through it. Then they ultimately had to shut him down. It's now been 10 days since Chapman hit the IL. And at last update publicly, he still wasn't using that hand really. He wasn't throwing baseballs. He wasn't gripping a bat, certainly not to the extent of dry swings or batting practice or anything like that. Arden, did this level of a break, needing this much time down, did that catch Matt Chapman off guard? Has this thing lingered or worsened to a level that maybe Chapman didn't expect when it happened initially?
Well, I think that the experience prior this year was pretty instructive as to how what it would look like if Chapman just had given it a few days and then had tried to come back, right? If you don't get all that swelling out and all that inflammation out, and you come back and you swing a bat a bunch and throw balls, 80 miles per hour across the diamond a bunch, you're only going to worsen that, and your symptoms are going to get worse, and baseball's schedule is not going to relent, and you're just going to feel like crap and probably perform like crap and end up back on the IL, as Chapman did. So the approach now is let's get this thing right. Let's get the swelling out. Let's get the inflammation out so that you're not in a position where we're having to IL you again, or you're having to perform at much less than your best or compete at much less than your best. So when I talked to Matt in Oakland on, I guess it would have been Wednesday, that swelling inflammation was still present, and he was pretty frustrated. He said that this sucks. I don't like it. I'm not happy. I'm not having a good time. He hasn't swung a bat since he hit the IL, which is probably the biggest issue here, because whenever he is able to grip a bat again and swing it again, there is going to be a ramp-up process there, and it's going to take some time for him to just recondition himself to swinging the way that he needs to in the majors. And the other thing he hasn't done is he hasn't thrown at full intensity. He's done a bit of light throwing, but when he's taking ground balls before games, he's catching them in his glove, obviously, and then just kind of shoveling them into a bucket of balls. He is not throwing hard across the diamond. He'll do a little bit of light throwing on the side, but that's that. So until he's able to really throw at full intensity and then swing a bat, his return, unfortunately, is not imminent. So it's a frustrating situation for him. But guys like him, guys like Bo Bichette, they're still trying to find ways to contribute, even if they're not on the field. Neither of those guys had to go on that trip on the West Coast. Neither of them had to get on that plane and change time zones. They weren't eligible to come off the IL on that trip, but both of them wanted to be around it, be around the environment, help their teammates, support their teammates. I was talking to David Schneider about that a couple of days ago, about how Bo Bichette's been in his ear in between plate appearances on the bench about his approach, about his footwork on the infield, about what he's seeing from opposition pitchers. And Schneider told me that that's something that was really valuable for him to have when his playing time here has increased with those guys out of the lineup.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I mean, look, we see Bo Bichette in the dugout. We heard him on the broadcast. Yeah, that's like having another hitting coach in there. Even if sometimes it does seem a little like Greinke-ish in the like, well, why don't you just go out there and do that? I can do it. Why don't you just hit spin on the very edge of the strike zone to stay alive with 2 strikes? But it's good to have that. So no real updates on Erik Swanson or Danny Jansen. Danny Jansen was seeing a specialist yesterday in Pennsylvania. I'd imagine we get an update from John Schneider pregame today. Erik Swanson threw in Toronto this week. I'd imagine there's a small update coming from Schneider today as well. On the Danny Jansen side of thing, though, Arden, I know, I can't remember if it was you or someone else on the broadcast talking in this Oakland series about, hey, Dalton Varsho might, strap the gear on and just practice a little bit just in case behind the plate. Is there a scenario in which, like, probably not to start, but like there are a couple subs late in a game and you need to sell out to win a game and the shuffling ends up where Varsho actually is behind the plate for an inning?
100%. And the Blue Jays have been a couple of, swings of fate from that happening, like really, really close to that happening at several times this season. And yeah, just even on this last road trip, I don't know that Varsho has, caught a bullpen or caught live pitching, but he has been doing work with catcher's gear on. So I assume that would be just taking balls off of the pitching machine and just working, just making sure that he's familiar with catching, which he hasn't done since last season. So like he is ready for that if and when it does happen. The one thing that Dalton has consistently like reinforced to me whenever I've talked to him about it is that it's not going to look pretty and it's not going to be good defensively. The receiving is not going to be crisp. He might box one. He might let a ball in the dirt in front of him get by him. Throwing to the bases would be something that he hasn't done in a long time. And surely the opposition is going to try to take advantage of him if he's behind there in a really tight spot. But yeah, this is something that's been on the table for the Blue Jays with Danny Jansen out, because there are spots where you're going to want to pinch hit for Tyler Heineman, and there are spots where, excuse me, my dog losing his mind, where you're going to want to pinch run for Alejandro Kirk. I honestly would not be surprised to see it happen at some point between now and the end of the regular season, because I'm not expecting Danny Jansen to be back between now and the end of the regular season. It's pretty cut and dry how long fractures take to heal, and there just isn't enough time there.
Especially at that position where, I mean, him especially as he's taking a beating this year. But yeah, you don't want to put that finger at risk of re-injury there. And look, maybe Varsho's being a little modest. He did throw out 33% of the base runners the last 2 seasons when he was behind the plate, but small sample and different rule set and a little more in the mix there. On the other side of that question, look, we know Tyler Heineman's going to start a couple of games here. They've shown us that when he starts a game, hey, around the 6th or 7th inning is when they'd look at pinch hitting Alejandro Kirk for him. So he's not going to, get a ton of playing time by backup catcher standards. The Jays here have a 10-game stretch coming out of an off day, and then 2 off days around 6-game stretches the rest of the way. There also aren't a ton of day games after night games. I believe they only have 3 of those left. Just how far could they push Alejandro Kirk's workload here?
I think that at this point in the season and the playoff race being what it is, you have to push him beyond your own comfort zone, just because of what you have been getting offensively lately. Because, Tyler Heineman, like, capable catcher, absolutely, like, strong defensive resume, but you need to prioritize offense right now, really. And then Alejandro Kirk has been giving you a little bit more offensively lately. Now, the issue with that is that in recent seasons, his workload and his offense have been somewhat tied together. And when the workload increases, typically the power has decreased for one reason or another. So you certainly want to be cautious with that. But yeah, I think that he needs to be in 5 times a week, maybe even 6 or, 5, and pinch hitting late in the game sort of deal, because it is just so important that you are scoring runs right now, because I think as the Blue Jays feel really confident about you starting pitching, you feel confident that, the bullpen struggles lately are just a little bit of a blip. The arms down there are still really good. There's a lot of weirdness in there when you get Kevin Smith going down after a Trevor Richards changeup, and it just like magically floats out of the ballpark. So you feel good about your run prevention. You need to prioritize your run creation right now, and Alejandro Kirk can be a part of that.
Now, we've seen the Jays a lot this year, give guys rotating off days or DH days as part of load management and just keeping the eye on the whole 162. But I mentioned it, 10 games in between off days here. That's a lot of games, but it's not 17 and 17. And then 2 6-game only stretches. You kind of just said it there with Kirk with the focus on offense. But are we officially at a point of the season where every single day it's the best lineup possible unless you're actually dealing with something?
I think it has to be, because these games the rest of the way are so important. You got 22 left, and realistically, you're trying to get to 90 wins. So you need 13 more, right? So you need to go 13-9. You think about it, if you want to get to 90 wins, you only have 9 more losses to play with. And you're playing teams like the Rays and the Yankees down the stretch. The Yankees have been hot lately. The Rays are one of the better teams in the American League. Boston plays you tough. They're coming into Rogers Center next weekend, and then Texas is going to have all the motivation in the world this week when they come in. So, this is the point in the season where, the workload management, the scheduled off days, all those sort of things take a back seat to how do we put ourselves in the best possible position to win here tonight. That impacts your pitching strategy as well in terms of when you lift starters from games, how far you push relievers. We saw Jordan Romano go 1+ in Oakland, I guess it was, the day after he had pitched in Colorado. That was really interesting on a back-to-back, and the Blue Jays chose to push him 1+, and he ends up with a 23-pitch save. Wouldn't be surprised if we see some more of those extended Jordan Romano outings, and to that point, extended Jordan Hicks outings as well.
Yeah, it's hey, you're not saving the bullets for much at this point if you don't make the playoffs. So there are 3 off days remaining over these last 22 as well. One of them was yesterday. The Jays haven't listed their probable pitchers for Saturday and Sunday yet. If they stay on turn, it would be Kikuchi, Gausman, Barrios. If you stayed on turn all the way through and those off days just give everyone uniformly 1 extra day off, you just keep rotating. Kevin Gausman would line up to start either game 162 if you needed that win, or game 1 of the wild card if you could go kind of bullpen day. Do you anticipate or do you think they'd consider juggling this rotation order a little bit? Let's say, hey, Barrios on Sunday would mean he doesn't pitch against the Rangers. We'd really like to have him pitch against the Rangers instead of, Chris Bassett, who might struggle a little bit more with Lowe and Semien. Or you're coming out of the next off day and looking at the Yankees and Rays segment, and you're like, we'd really, like to optimize against the Rays. Do you see them doing that, or do you think they just kind of roll the 5 guys in order, use the extra off days for rest?
I think if you're looking to optimize anything, it's the final week of the season, and particularly the final weekend, because that's where this is headed, where it's going to be right down to, honestly, probably that final series against the Rays. Certainly that second last series against the Yankees in the final week is going to be really important too. So I think you're trying to line things up for that, and then having your ducks in a row where, as you mentioned, you could have Kevin Gausman start a game 162 if you absolutely have to win that to get in. Or you could push him back and have him start game 1 of wild card series, which would be ideal as well. So I think that's what you're looking at targeting and optimizing. And it looks like the Blue Jays have that lined up the way they would like it to be right now. So I expect that they just kind of continue and keep things rolling and don't really juggle anything to get matchups in order against the Rangers. I mean, yes, Chris Bassett has not done great against lefties this year. Yes, the Rangers are an explosive offense, but Bassett is coming off of back-to-back 8-inning outings in which he has been exceptional. Mm-hmm. So if you want to look at just current form and very recent results, I don't know who in this rotation you would rather be throwing right now than Chris Bassett.
Yeah, I just used him as an example of, hey, something you could be thinking. He's obviously been a tremendous last couple times through. And, hey, maybe a little bit to be said for 2. Let's see how this holds up against a really, really good offense that has some tough lefties in there, because he's been pretty phenomenal the last couple times out. So, in a hypothetical game 162, Arden, where the Jays have a playoff spot locked up and you don't start Kevin Gausman in that spot, you hold him for the wild card. A couple weeks ago, I would have said, you know what? let's have Alek Manoah back up from AAA to start that last game. That does not sound likely anymore. What have you heard about? We talked to Ben Nicholson-Smith a little bit about it yesterday, that he's going to seek a further opinion on some of the physical ailments that he's been dealing with, even though he is optioned to AAA, not on the injured list. Certainly calendar-wise, I think we're at a point at this point where we can't expect Alek Manoah to pitch for this team again this year. So maybe this is more of an off-season conversation. But what have you heard on the Manoah front, and what do you make of how these last couple of weeks have gone?
Yeah, I don't expect Alek Manoah to pitch at any level for the rest of the season, to be honest with you, just because of where things are at. Like you laid it out there, last time that he was off a mound, and that includes side sessions, that includes bullpen. It's not like he's been throwing on the side. I mean, the last time he was off a mound was August 10th against the Cleveland Guardians. So we're now talking about a month removed from when he was last off the mound. So for him to get back to that point, to be in a game, the ramp-up process, there just isn't enough season remaining. And that's putting aside the fact that, as you said, and as Ben said on your show yesterday, I mean, he's going off for further opinion on some of the physical ailments that he's been experiencing. I mean, this happened when he was first optioned in August, where he reported to the Blue Jays that he was dealing with some quad stuff, some back stuff, some knee stuff. They took the time to do the testing, the imaging, all the kinds of ways that they have of measuring that stuff and getting to the bottom of what's going on there. And there wasn't an injury discovered, or at least there wasn't something discovered that requires an extensive rehabilitation or revision or anything like that. It was just, you're bagged up, but there isn't, there isn't anything structural here that needs a repair. So the expectation at that time was that Alek Manoah would continue pitching, or at least would ramp back up and get back off a mound. I mean, Manoah wanted to do that. The Blue Jays wanted him to do that. But it seems like some of those symptoms that he was experiencing have persisted. So they're going to continue to try to get to the bottom of this and see what's going on with him physically. And I just think that he's running out of time, honestly, to get back into a game this year. So it does become about 2024 and about how you put him in the best position physically, mentally, delivery-wise, conditioning-wise, all of the above, holistically, to get back to the pitcher who he's been at the big league level. And that is going to be the process, I think, going forward, is just what does the short, medium, and long-term future look like for Alek Manoah with this organization, and with, getting his career back to where it was not that long ago when he was the opening day starter.
Well, maybe what that'll mean is the first career start for Bowden Francis in game 162 then, which I think you and I would both get a kick out of, even though, Alek Manoah was part of the plan, and this is a weird situation to enter the offseason looking at. Arden, so it's the Royals this weekend. Texas is playing against Oakland. I don't think the Jays can anticipate making up a game this weekend, so it's likely that they'll head into this Texas series next week within a game and playing 4 against the team that's closest to them in the standings. It's as much as control your own destiny right now as you can get, short of playing, the last 6 games of the season against Texas or something like that. When you look at what has happened to Texas over the last month, and conversely, what has happened to Seattle to kind of help them surge past them, how much has your opinion of that team changed overall? And, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about Jays and Mariners. It's now Jays and Rangers. Do you think that is the right way to be thinking about it? Or do you still see enough in this Rangers team, even with the Adolis Garcia injury, that they could, turn things back around and be the Rangers we saw earlier in the year at some point?
They need to sort out their run prevention.
Yeah.
This is the big deal, because even throughout this skid, they've still been having games where they're regularly putting up 5, 6, 7 runs. So, I mean, it's still an explosive offense. It's still a Seager and a Simeon, and losing a Garcia is going to hurt, but it is still just a very good run producing team. The problem is their bullpen has been an absolute disaster, and they've had some really atypical outings from a Scherzer or an Evaldi when he came off of the IL the other day. I mean, they just have really struggled to pitch and defend. So that's what they need to get sorted out. If that is continuing when they come into Rogers Center next week, the Blue Jays absolutely need to take advantage of it. I mean, the minimum in that series for the Blue Jays is 3 wins, because that's what they need to secure the tiebreaker against the Rangers. And this is a year where I believe the tiebreakers are going to be very, very important. Like I said, I think this is all coming down to the final week, if not the final weekend. And it's possible that Seattle drops back into that discussion as well. As things are, currently situated, I do think the Blue Jays and Rangers will be right there, likely with not much space separating them in the standings. So if you can gain that tiebreaker, it's like gaining another game, essentially. And if you give up that tiebreaker, it's like giving up another game and just making the hill you have to succumb or you have to climb, like overcome that much taller. So 3 of 4 next week has to be the absolute minimum for the Blue Jays. It's okay if you split it like standings wise, but you really want that tiebreaker, so you have to win 3.
Yeah, you'd really hope so. And hey, that last week of the season, you're going to be on the radio call for those games, so that'll be a lot of fun for you. You'll be doing the sideline reporting on the TV side this weekend, so appreciate you taking the time out. I know you put a lot of prep into those. Enjoy this weekend series. I'm sure we'll bug you again during the Rangers series.